So welcome back to part 2 of the PCT Q&A videos. Well, let's start the morning off with the first question from M. Johnson. It says, thank you for sharing your journey. Did your motivation to do the PCT change from the first time you attempted it? It definitely did, yes. Looking back now in 2019, I was actually, probably I would say, too confident. I just went into it thinking it was going to be easy, and I really underestimated things big time. I didn't have much idea of how much the weather affected things, and I had no idea that an early start date in mid-March would really affect things as well. This year I was a lot more prepared. I had a lot more understanding of things, and I think I mentioned in part 1 of the video that I was pretty focused on finishing, and I wanted to make sure that the time and the money that I'd put into the trip wasn't going to go to waste. She's also asked what was the scariest and most joyful moment, not counting starting or finishing. Scariest moment. I'm not sure if I've answered that one already from somebody else. I'll go with most joyful to start with. I think that was probably a combination of summiting Mount Whitney for sunrise on my own, and then hiking across to Forester Pass, and the next day going up and over Forester Pass. I think I mentioned in the video at the time that I'd built it up to such a big deal in my head since 2019, Forester Pass especially. I never ever thought I'd get to the top of Whitney, let alone for sunrise. And Forester Pass, as I said, was just something that I was genuinely worried about and scared of. So completing both those within kind of a 36-hour period was just extremely joyful. And scariest, it didn't seem like it at the time, but Goat Rocks was quite scary. There was some pretty dodgy drop-offs on that knife edge section. And actually, no, coming down Mather Pass in the Sierras, going up it wasn't too bad. Coming down it was quite worrying. That was the one pass in the Sierras where I got pretty scared, to be honest with you, just because it was so awkward, especially the first kind of maybe 15-20 minutes coming down the other side. Yeah, that was pretty worrying. John B asks, what do you do about sizing your shoes? Half size or even a full size up from a normal size? Or do you wear the same size as you would for a day walk? John, good question. Normally I wear a UK 11 in pretty much everything, and this time I wore a UK 11 most of the trail. The Topo Vistas that I bought, they were a UK 11, but they were a wide size. And then the very final pair of Mountain Racer 3s that I bought, I actually went up a half size in them, which I've never ever done before. And to be honest with you, it made a really big difference, especially on the downhills. There was no more toe bump going on the downhills. I think normally I would have been alright. By the time I bought them, I'd walked about 2,000 miles, and I think my feet had possibly grown a little bit without me realising. And then he's also asked, what about socks? Do you have a 2-sock strategy or a thin sock, thick sock, toe socks? How often do you swap socks? Are they wool or synthetic? Yeah, I do a 2-sock strategy. So I wear a Injinji toe liner, and then I have a Dan Tough quarter hiker over the top. I've tried different things in the past and always encountered some form of problem. This is the thing that works the best for me. I didn't get a single blister on the PCT. Bear in mind that I'm a postman and I'm used to walking like 50-60 miles a week, 10 miles every day usually. The Injinjis that I use, the toe liners, they are synthetic, and then the Dan Toughs are a merino blend, I believe. Swapping them, I'm actually pretty bad with that, and I was going sometimes 4 days without swapping, which was pretty bad. They do get really crusty, and I don't just mean crusty as descriptor, crusty as in cardboard solid, especially when you're encountering a lot of dust. I think really you should be swapping them out, if not every day, every kind of other day. At least swapping, it doesn't have to be to a clean pair, but just to swapping the pair out that you've been wearing to a pair that you haven't been wearing. I ended up doing that a little bit towards the end of the trail. I was also rinsing them out in streams at certain points and hanging them on the back of my backpack to kind of dry out, just to try and get the thickest of the dirt off them. I've found that the difference between like a 2-day-old pair of socks and a brand new or a rinsed pair of socks was huge, and you really, really do notice it. Let's try and have a couple of questions whilst I pack my bag. Alright, so I thought this might come up. It's Coy's Mike who's asked the question, and he's put, if you were to do a long distance hike or any remote hike again, or should I say when, would you now consider a satellite communicator like an InReach, if only for the emergency function? Do you know what, Mike? Possibly consider it. To be completely honest, it was Amelia that was pushing me to get one, and it was mainly because she wanted to keep in touch with me when we had no phone service. But I think, given the cost of them, at some point, if I can afford to buy one, it may be a good idea, because having that little bit of peace of mind, knowing that you can contact the outside world if needs be, no matter where you are, and also like letting folks back home know that you're all right, rather than going kind of 4 or 5 days without any contact, is probably a nice thing to do. Yes, I probably would consider it, Mike. I think it would, if I'm going to carry on doing long distance hikes, like 1 or 2 a year, which I'm hoping to be able to do, I think it would probably be a sensible investment to do that. Maybe this year, when Black Friday sales come on, I'll have a look at that. Oh. Next, pick one out randomly. Next one, we've got Johan Gorso. My question is about your sleep system. What worked, what didn't, what was most important for you to get good rest during your hike? I kind of covered that in the gear video, Johan. I can't sleep if I'm too cold. I was having difficulty with that when I was using the sleeping bag that was 6 years old. As soon as I changed from that to the one I've got with me now, the 10 degree bag, I had a lot better time of things. So I would say the sleep system I had in the end worked pretty well. I was pretty happy with it. The foam mattress on the bottom with the air mattress on top, and then the silk sleeping bag liner was really good in the fact that I could just climb into bed absolutely filthy on an evening and not have to worry about getting my sleeping bag all filthy and dirty. That was a real bonus, was that. The inflatable pillow, they're much the same, I think, the inflatable pillows. Maybe I'll switch to something else. This one's about had it, I think. I'll maybe try something else next time when I'm due to replace it. One thing I will say about me and sleep on the trail is, especially in a Dyneema tent, I find it really difficult when it's a full moon. It's surprising how bright it is. Really caught me off guard, actually. I didn't realise some places were extremely bright. Found it really difficult on those nights to get off to sleep. Next question, Jared Williams. What were the logistics with laundry on trail? How long did you have to go between washes and changes of clothes? Logistics, it was pretty much, I think almost every decent sized town that you went into would have at least one laundry, like a hotel or a motel where you stayed where you could do laundry. A couple of places didn't. Some places would maybe only have one that wasn't open the day you were there, especially if it was like a Sunday. But for the most part, I would say if you wanted to, you could probably have your clothes washed every maybe 4 or 5 days, not taking the Sierras into that. The Sierras are a different beast because there's so few town stops there and they're kind of few and far between. You've got longer distances. Washington might be a little bit different as well. Generally, I was lucky that I had a spare set of town clothes. So I had a spare pair of shorts and a spare t-shirt that I just used specifically for towns. I could just change into them when I got to a town and then take everything else to the laundry. Some people didn't have that luxury. They would generally wear their waterproofs if they wanted to wash everything else. If you were staying with a trail angel or a hostel, they sometimes had loaner clothes that you could use whilst you were at the laundry, so you could borrow something whilst you were getting your laundry done. So there was a few different ways. Towards the end of the trail, I pretty much gave up on staying clean and staying laundered, and I was going kind of 6, 7, 8 days without getting my clothes washed or washing myself. I just kind of gave in to the stink. I feel sorry for anyone that was near me on any public transport or anywhere, to be honest with you. I was pretty ripe by that stage. Rog C. Brand says, great to see you at home and not looking exhausted. Did you find a favourite food that you'd never had before? Decent question, Rog. Normally, I think I mentioned this when I was on the trail, I go for pizzas and burgers. And I think while I was in the States this time, I had maybe 3 pizzas maximum. You know what? I can't even recall having a burger. I may have had 1. So I was trying a few different things. The main one for me, obviously I've had it before, but I was eating a lot of fresh fruit. Loads and loads of it. And you all know I was eating a lot of ice cream as well. The one thing that I'd never tried before, that I got to the point where I could barely do without on the trail, was the sweet and dried mango. There's just something about it, I don't know what it was, but it was just highly satisfying. Right, Mile-RT7QT. How much did it cost in total? How much did you save up to do the PCT? I kind of answered that in some previous questions, Mile. Ballpark figure would be $20,000, very ballpark figure. If at some point I get the chance to sit down and go through all my card statements, I could probably get a little bit more of an accurate figure. Can you explain the permit process? Yes, I can explain the permit process. Permits are released in 2 waves. So the first wave of permits are released on a lottery basis, and they release 35 permits per day of the hiking season. So what you have to do, I think, is you have to go online to the PCTA website, basically register and sign up to be notified when the permits become available. When they become available, you get emailed a specific time slot on a specific day to log on to the PCTA website and pick your start date from what's left and what's available on there. I can't remember the date, but the time I was allocated was 1:15 in the afternoon, something like that. And they give you a 15-minute window from when you've logged in to actually choose your date and book it. So in that time, nothing's going to happen to the dates that are there, i.e. you're safe. It's not like you're going to be logged in thinking about it and within 2 minutes all the dates are going to be gone. That won't happen. You're safe once you're logged in for that 15 minutes. You can pick a date from the available ones there. Now, it is just the ones that are available. So if a day has got 35 permits allocated to it already, you ain't going to be getting a permit on that day, on that permit release. What I would suggest to people is pick a date. Have your ideal date in mind, like I wanted mid-April, so that's what I was looking for. When I logged on, because it was quite late in the day, a lot of people had picked already, so there was no dates left mid-April. So I took the closest I could get, which was in March. And what you'll find is that people cancel permits for whatever reason it may be. And if you keep logging on, once you've got a permit date and it's been confirmed by the PCTA, you've got a permit. That is it, you're locked in. And once you've got that, you can then change it. And as far as I'm aware, you can have an unlimited amount of changes. What I did was I took a date in March, kept checking later. I changed it twice until I ended up with one in April, and that was because every single day in April was full when I kept looking, and then one day somebody had obviously logged on and had to cancel their permit for whatever reason, so I got a cancellation. And then a little bit later on, what they do is they release the remaining 15 permits per day, so there's a total of 50 permits per day. So once you've got your permit, even if it's the date that you don't want, you can keep logging on to the website and changing your permit date. That is what I would suggest. Make sure you get yourself a permit to start with, even if it's the date that you don't want. Even if you're getting one on the 1st of March, it doesn't matter, your permit's locked in. Try and change your date there. What I also found this time was there was a heck of a lot of cancellations the closer you got to March. February time, there started to be loads of dates being cancelled. So it's something to keep an eye out. Don't give up hope if you haven't managed to get a date by that time. I know it's leaving it last minute, but keep checking the website as often as you can, because people do cancel. That was the permit process. I know you had a few other questions as well. Best and worst gear you used. I think I've covered all that in the gear video. What's my plans now I'm back in the UK? Back to normal life, I'm afraid. For the time being. I spent way too much money. I've got myself into a bit of a hole on that trip. I knew that would be the case, but I wanted to do it sooner rather than later. Quite a few different reasons. So I decided just to take the plunge and do it. So I've got to kind of knuckle down now and get myself back on an even keel if I can. All right, next one is from Craig. He's put, Paul, I was a latecomer. I'm still watching through your journey, but I suppose my question is, I do not have the ability to take that much time off from work, but I would like to experience it bit by bit. How would that work with permits, start and finish locations? So, as far as I'm aware, Craig, if you are intending to hike 500 miles or more in one go, you need a long distance permit, and that would be going through the process that I just outlined. If you are going to be keeping your sections under 500 miles, then that is a whole different ball game, because I think what you need to do is get separate permits from each individual agency whose land you're going to be passing through on that section. So let's say you were going to hike half of Oregon, which would be somewhere around 230 miles, something like that, very roughly speaking. You wouldn't need the PCTA long distance permit, but you would have to check which land management zones you were passing through, if there was any national parks or anything like that, or any state parks, or any special management areas, any certain forests, any national forest areas, and you would have to get a permit for each one of those to allow you to pass through and sometimes as well camp there. I haven't spent a great deal of time on there, but I think all of those are listed on the PCTA's website if you dive in there. Start and finish locations that you asked about, it's basically where you can get with whatever transport you've got available. So a lot of places just don't have public transport go into them. It's kind of the one area where the PCT is a little bit challenging, so you probably would have to hitchhike in places, which around the PCT isn't that difficult because people expect it from PCT hikers. They know that when they see someone near the trail with a backpack on, he's probably hiking the PCT. But I would say try and keep your start and finish locations to the more major towns and cities if you can. Don't try and say start at the Oregon border with California, because it's a difficult one to get to. Pick a logical starting point where you can get a bus or a train or a plane to that town, and then maybe hitchhike or get a trail angel to take you out to the trail. Unfortunately, not having a great deal of experience of section hiking, that's pretty much the best I can offer you in that respect, I'm afraid, fella. But I'm sure that I know loads of people do it each year, so it can't be that difficult. This is Big Mo on the move. They ask, on resupply, specifically shoes, is it easy to find the make, model and size of shoe locally on trail, or is it better to plan a resupply shipment for shoes? I would say without a doubt there, plan your resupply. I used REI most of the time for my shoes, with the exception, I think, of the Vistas that I bought from a store in South Lake Tahoe because I'd left it too late to get a shipment to me. REI were generally extremely good, I do have to say. I was really impressed with their service. All of their shipments arrived either before or on the date that they quoted me. But you've basically just got too many hikers passing through these towns where there's maybe only one store that sells Ultras or Topos or Hokas. Shoes just get decimated, basically. To be able to find a shoe, especially if you've got a size like a common size as well, you just don't have a chance. So definitely I would say try and plan your shoe deliveries accordingly. They're also asking, how many miles did you get out of your shoes typically? The entire trail I went through 5 pairs of shoes. The 5th pair I'm still wearing at the moment. There's plenty of tread left on them, plenty of life left in them, but the other 4 pairs were pretty much dead when I got rid of them. I was getting between, I would say, 400 and 600 miles out of them. I would say with shoes and tread on the shoes, the 2 places where you must make sure that you've got decent grip on your shoes. The Sierras, obviously. You want some shoes with good aggressive grip there. That is not somewhere where you want to be slipping and having traction issues. And I also found that Washington, especially the final 2/3 of Washington, I was very, very glad of having some shoes with decent grip on. So try and bear that in mind. And they've put, and lastly, what start date would you recommend and why? Now that's a difficult question because it depends on so many things. It depends on the weather, depends on how much snowfall there's been during the winter, and it also depends on the individual hiker and their capabilities and what experience they're looking for. So me, knowing that I can move pretty fast when I want to, if I was to do it again, I would go late April, early May start date without a doubt. Someone who is maybe new to through hiking, not that experienced, not that confident in their abilities, maybe not too in shape, I would say try for mid-April, early to mid-April, and give yourself time to build up to things in the desert. So don't go straight in doing 20-mile days. Give yourself a week of doing like 10, 12-mile days. Get yourself accustomed to carrying your backpack weight. Get yourself accustomed to the heat and the terrain and just walking that distance with a loaded pack every day. Right, let's get down to business, shall we? I've got roughly 12 questions from Soul Adventure 71. I know she's planning on doing the trail herself. I think it's next year. Wish her the best of luck with that. And hopefully I can get some of these questions answered for you. So first one, did you pre-plan most of your day's miles before you got on trail, or did you just go until you were tired or found a spot to camp? There was very little pre-planning for me. When I walked with Amelia, she was very much into planning. That's not me at all. That's one of the reasons why it didn't quite work out hiking with her. I much preferred to be able to gauge it as I went along. Did you purchase your ice axe prior to or on trail? I didn't have an ice axe. Never carried one. I carried one in 2019, which bear in mind was a very heavy snow year, and I never used it once in 2019. And I had that in mind this time, and I knew that it was kind of a normal snow year this year. So my thinking was, if I didn't use it in 2019, I ain't going to be using it this year. So, yep, I didn't bother with it. And to be fair, there was nowhere where I really thought to myself, oh man, I wish I had an ice axe. Something to bear in mind. I think that really depends on the amount of snow there is during the winter in the Sierras and what time of year you're going to be hitting the Sierras. 3, did you use any other apps for navigation other than Far Out? No, I didn't. I know a few people were using, is it Gaia? But that was mostly for doing side quests. A lot of the side trails aren't marked on Far Out. If you want to go and bag a few peaks at certain points, they're not marked on Far Out usually. So things like Gaia, I believe they were marked on them. That's what people were using that for. Before, how long was your longest food carry and where was that for you? I want to say that it was from Kennedy Meadows South to Kearsarge Pass. Yeah, that was by far my longest food carry. As I got further down the trail and started doing bigger miles, things became a little bit easier, but it's quite difficult in the Sierra when you're moving slower. Number 5, did you end up dry camping most nights, or were you lucky enough to find a creek, stream to camp by? I'm someone that will happily scoop up 2 or 3 litres of water and carry it to a dry camp. Most people tend to try and camp near water sources, so I found that even if I did want to camp near a water source, generally a lot of the spots were taken, and it was quite busy as well, a lot of snorers and things like that. I preferred a bit of solitude, and what you'll find is that the dry camps are generally the best ones. They've got the best views usually, so if you're prepared to carry a few litres of extra water, maybe 1 or 2 miles, maybe a little bit more, that was really, really worth it for me. Right, number 6, how many Neros and Zeros did you take? This is an awesome question because it made me look. I'll start by saying I can't tell you the Neros because I think different people have different definitions of a Nero. To me, a Nero would be any day where I've not hiked a full day, basically, so there would have been quite a few. A lot of people define Nero as if you do less than 10 trail miles, but the Zeros is where it gets interesting. So in the entire trail, I took 36 0 days where I hiked no miles at all. And breaking that down, up until the halfway point in California, I took 29 0 days. After the halfway point, I took 7 0 days, and 3 of those were all together in Ashland in Oregon. So that is really, really interesting to me and very surprising. I knew I'd taken a lot, but I didn't realise I'd taken that many. So that means that if you're just counting walking days, I actually got the trail done in 113 days and I averaged 23.5 miles a day. Thank you for that question, because that made me look at my facts and figures and find something out that surprised me. Number 7, how many pairs of shoes did you end up going through? 5. Number 8, is there anything you wished you would have had that you didn't bring? I think mainly just the Tyvek sheet from the start. or the ground cloth for my tent. I know I mentioned a few times that I may have preferred to take a freestanding tent. I'm still on the fence about that one, and I still don't know what I'd do if I were to hike again in the future. There are trade-offs both ways. Number 9, was there anything you took that you didn't use? I think I've kind of covered that in the gear video. That single tent ground sheet got used once. The button-up shirt I was going to hike in, that just got used a couple of times in a town. The flip-flops that I took, I think Centipede used them more than I did. I used them like twice, I think. I just didn't get on with them at all. And I'm sure there was a couple of other bits that I mentioned in the gear video as well. Number 10, how much did it cost you this year? Like I said before, I think it was very roughly speaking in the region of $20,000 with all those unplanned for expenses and all the accommodation. Obviously, 36 0 days, that's a lot of money in hotels and motels. Number 11, were you able to stay warm enough with all your gear? I'm cold 90% of the time, and being cold is one of my fears whilst being on trail. That is one of the main fears on trail, and I would say for American hikers it needn't be, because if you take too much stuff with you, you can just send it home. As well, if you don't take enough stuff with you, you can get a friend or a family member to mail you out that fleece jacket that you really want. Don't worry too much about that. You will figure that out on the trail. I will say the nights in the desert, if you're starting early to mid-April, if that is when you're looking to start, the nights in the desert are really cold, especially if you're camping low in the valleys. The only time I was freezing cold was on the summit of Mount Whitney at 5:30 in the morning, and I should have taken my sleeping bag up with me, but stupid me didn't do that. Hopefully that has answered all those for you, and don't be afraid, you've got my email address. Don't be afraid to ask me anything else if anything else pops into your head. Alright, we're getting through them now, there's only a few left. Farmer Spud says, which do you prefer, the shorter Pyrenees trails like the GR11 with less hikers, less distance, or the PCT, much longer, more hikers and more mentally challenging? Do you know what, I wouldn't say I've got a preference. They've both got their plus points and their drawbacks. The GR11 was obviously about 520 miles long. Beautiful, beautiful scenery. A lot quieter than the PCT, much, much quieter, but you added the challenge of the language barrier. The ascents and descents were much steeper and probably much more frequent. And then the PCT, if you're saying the PCT trail itself, then probably I would say the PCT, and that's mainly because of just the variation of scenery that you walk through. There's not many trails where you can literally be walking in the desert on sand in the morning, and then at night you can be walking on snow at the top of a mountain, which is what happened to me around the Paradise Valley Cafe area. The shorter trails, saying shorter, 520 miles isn't short by any means, but I know what you mean. They can fit a lot easier into normal life than a 6-month hike. So Miriam says, do you understand yourself in a new way now? No, I don't, unfortunately. I feel very similar now to what I did before I did the trail. When I think about the trail now, it almost feels like it was somebody else that hiked it. It feels like a dream, and I genuinely can't imagine walking 30 miles up and down mountains day in, day out, sometimes longer than that as well. It's such an odd feeling. You know you've done it, the memories are there, but it doesn't feel like it was me. It's very strange. But no, I don't understand myself in a new way, unfortunately. There's a few things I learned. You put yourself in that position of doing that sort of thing, and you're bound to learn a couple of things about yourself unless you've been doing that kind of thing for years on end. Any ways in which you are more clear or more confused about yourself? Again, I don't think so, no. What it's made me think about is my creative side, which I don't normally express in any form apart from these videos. And I just have this urge to create something from my experience, but I just don't know what. I've started trying to map out a book, but I just don't know if there would be a market for it at all. It's a real nice idea, but it's the kind of thing that's very personal, and whether or not that would be a good idea to do that, I genuinely don't know. It's just made me think about that kind of thing, if there's anything I can produce from the experience, if that makes sense. And then the last one, have you surprised yourself in any way? Yeah, I think I touched on this a little bit with a different question. I never thought that I'd be able to do that to my body day in, day out as well, and just keep doing it. That was one thing that really surprised me. That was what I wanted from the trail. I wanted to push myself, and I wanted to test myself, and I wanted to see if, not only see if I could do it, but see if I could do it in the best way that I could possibly, if you follow me. I am pretty sure, looking back and going onto those 0-day statistics and things like that, if I was to hike the whole trail on my own and really focus, and obviously if I wasn't filming as well, I'm pretty sure I could get under 100 days. That would be awesome, but I don't think that'll ever happen in the future. That is the kind of thing I'd like to try and push myself to do. So yeah, that surprised me, what I was able to do day in, day out, basically. Oh, this is just beautiful this morning by the coastline. Really nice. We've only got 2 questions left, folks. Your pain is nearly over. David Schaefer. Hi, Paul. I followed you from the beginning and recognised when you found the hiker's remains it was disturbing to you in the moment and several days after. How are you getting on now? And did the authorities ever discover who the hiker was? Thanks, David. Yeah, it did shake me. Weirdly enough, not much at the time. Not as much as it did later. I was definitely shook when I found it. I honestly thought it was just going to be a pile of trash that somebody had left there, or like you get in the UK quite often, somebody's camped and just left the stuff that they've used. I thought it was going to be something like that. I never for one moment expected to find bones there. So yeah, it did shake me at that time. I didn't really process it that day. I think that was the problem. My brain didn't process it, and the next day, if you've watched the videos, you'll probably realise I got pretty emotional. It started making me think about things, about like one wrong step, and you know, it could quite easily be me or any other hiker. And I think the thing that upset me the most when I thought about it, and it still does, is that that poor person has been laid there on their own for such a long amount of time, and either no one's noticed or no one's bothered to report it, which I think is just horrible. I think that was the thing that upset me the most, to be honest. How am I doing now? Yeah, much better now, thank you. It's still, when I think about it, it still does get me. Occasionally when I've been going through photographs, I kind of come across a few photographs that I took that day. Kind of brings things back. Did the authorities ever discover who it was? I explained about this in a previous question. It's just such a strange going on to me. And I can see in a way why some people think I made it up, just because there's been nothing about it on the internet. But no, as far as I'm aware, they've not released the person's identity. It's a shame. I'm guessing that they're either having trouble identifying them officially, or they can't find any next of kin at the moment. Hopefully at some point the details will come out, because I'd obviously like to know for certain myself. So the one question that sticks in my mind that I saw, that I've just realised I haven't printed out because I think it's disappeared. I can't remember your name, I'm really sorry, but someone said, explain this black thing on the top of my water bottle. The eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed this a lot in videos, and you may not have put 2 and 2 together, but it's only ever there when I'm filming. All it is the rubber lens cap protector off the top of my video camera. That's all it is. I just put it there because I don't have any pockets when I'm hiking, and it fits on the top of the water bottle perfectly. It's nice and tight and secure. It's not going to go anywhere, and it's just easy for me to pick off again. So that is literally all it is. It's nothing to do with bear spray or anything like that. There's nothing really exciting about it. It's just a lens cap. Sorry guys. Final question then, and you can all go back to your normal lives. From Kevin Graham. So glad you got to finish the PCT. My one and only question is, what is your next through hike and when? I think I actually touched on this yesterday with the video, but basically I have got 2 longer hikes that I've got my eye on, the HRP and the GR5, both in Europe. The HRP is roughly 500 miles-ish, the GR5 is a little bit less than that. The GR5 is through the Alps in France. I believe it goes through 3 of France's stunning southern national parks. If you've watched videos on the channel, you'll know I've done the GR11 along one side of the Pyrenees, and I've done probably about a third or a half of the GR10 on the other side of the Pyrenees. Well, the HRP straddles both of those, so it goes along the tops of the Pyrenees mountains basically as much as it can. It's a lot wilder than the other 2 routes. It's not actually a marked route. There's a lot of route finding with it. You're carrying food for longer, but you're in a lot more of a wild and scenic area. The HRP is pretty much regarded as one of the jewels in the crown of European long distance hiking, and I would love to be able to do that one. At the moment, I've got 4 weeks booked off work from September 2026, so I think I'm at work the first week in September, and then I've got 4 weeks off. So if something happens, it's going to be happening then. Well, that is it, folks. Thank you very much for joining me on this little outing. Hope it's been a little bit more entertaining than sat in front of the camera for 2 hours just talking in the back garden. If you do have any more questions, please do pop them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them there. I think that'll probably be it for video questions now. Seem to have had most people's. Hopefully I've done my best to answer them for you. If you are hiking in the future, best of luck to you. Hope you have a great hike, and at some point, hopefully not too soon, not too far away, I'm intending to do a little tips video just with about 10 or so points. I would have filmed it now, but I don't have enough space left on the memory card. So yeah, that's going to be like a tips video and advice for future PCT hikers. Maybe you'll find 1 or 2 of those things helpful to you if you're going to hike in the future. But for now, for me and the lovely coastline, it's goodbye. Take care of yourselves, folks, and happy trails.